If you like storytime vibes, hit subscribe and let's dive in together.
I was standing on that porch, staring at the ground, and a single ridiculous thought kept looping in my head. I don't know the woman whose hand I'm holding. We'd been married for 5 years, shared a bed, a mortgage, a life. But in the dim, thumping chaos of that party, I realized Sarah, my quiet, home loving wife, was wearing a costume, and I was looking at the woman she was before me, a beautiful, terrifying stranger. Sarah is the anchor in my life. She's the Sunday morning quiet, the smell of fresh coffee, and the person who gets genuinely excited about finding a matching TV series to binge watch. Our dates are usually a good movie or cooking together, and I love that about her. I thought we were perfectly aligned on the quiet life philosophy. So, when she first mentioned a party, I was hesitant. I'm not a party guy. I'm a good listener, not a good shouter over thumping bass. She leaned into me one evening, her eyes big and earnest. "It's nothing big, David, promise," she said, tracing circles on my arm. "Just a small gathering of my old college friends. A casual catch-up. I just want to introduce you to them. You know, a few old friends, some wine, maybe talk about the good old days. It'll be quiet, I swear." She wanted me there partly to introduce me to her college friends, but also because she wanted to feel that old spark of youth again. I saw the excitement in her eyes, that little flicker of her younger self, and how could I say no to that? "Are you sure I'll fit in?" I asked, perhaps twice because the idea of college friends always conjured up images of debauchery. "Of course, they'll love you," she said, kissing my cheek. It was a nice lie, a gentle, soft lie that shielded me from the truth. The truth was, she didn't want me to say no. I should have listened to my gut. The night we were leaving, I remember looking at her outfit. It wasn't the cozy, slightly oversized sweater she wore when we hosted. This was sleek, black, and somehow sharper. She was wearing perfume I hadn't smelled before. Something bolder, maybe a bit dangerous. But I brushed it off. Small gathering, David. Don't overthink it. We drove into the city, and as we turned the corner, the bass hit me first. Not a subtle background hum, but a physical thump, thump, thump that vibrated the car's rearview mirror. The street was already packed with cars, and the house itself was glowing with a kind of chaotic energy. It was like pulling up to a concert, not a quiet catch-up. My stomach dropped. I looked at Sarah, but she was already beaming. Her windows rolled down, pulling in the noise and the laughter. "A small gathering, huh?" I said, trying to keep the sarcasm out of my voice. She just gave me that dazzling, slightly mischievous smile and said, "Well, their definition of small might be a little different from ours. Come on, Grumpy. Let's go have some fun." She unbuckled her seatbelt, already 1,000 miles away from our quiet couch and matching pajamas. The moment we walked through the door, I felt the familiar weight of being an outsider. The air was thick with the scent of mingling food, perfume, and something faintly boozy. Dim lights cast long moving shadows across a crowded room. And then Sarah was gone. She was instantly swarmed. Her friends hugged her, cheered, and started reminiscing about the old days. It was a flash flood of nostalgia, and Sarah dove right in, becoming the life of the party. The Sarah I knew, the one who needed 2 cups of tea to start talking in the morning, vanished. This Sarah was loud. She was animated. Her laughter was the loudest thing in the room. Drinks were handed to her, she took selfies, and she was telling stories I'd never heard. Stories about wild college trips and crazy stunts. She was speaking with a confidence and a rapid-fire wit that I rarely saw at home. It was like watching a movie star transition from a quiet drama to a boisterous comedy. I tried to keep up. I smiled politely and exchanged quiet greetings with the people who remembered to look past Sarah and see me. For a while, I stood near the wall, playing with the edge of my cuff, trying to look comfortable. I felt like a misplaced piece of furniture. A nice piece, maybe, but utterly useless in this setting. I found my refuge near the snack table, a beacon of normalcy in the thumping chaos. I struck up a small talk with a guy about the local football team. We talked about sports for about 20 minutes, and I remember feeling grateful for the mundane conversation. An island in the middle of this roaring ocean. Occasionally, I glanced at Sarah. She was radiant. She looked like she was finally breathing air she'd been holding in for years. But she wasn't looking at me. She was laughing with her back turned, fully immersed. The music got louder. The energy intensified. The small talk guy wandered off, drawn back into the central vortex of laughter and noise. And I was alone again. The awkward husband at the back of the party. The feeling wasn't just physical discomfort from the noise. It was an emotional ache. It wasn't just, I don't fit in. It was, this whole, vibrant, chaotic person is my wife. And I never knew she existed. She hadn't just changed her clothes. She had changed her frequency. I looked at her one last time. She was mid-cheer, raising a plastic cup high, her head thrown back in pure, unadulterated joy. And in that moment of watching her live in a world I didn't belong to, I felt a genuine, sharp pang of confusion and distance. It wasn't anger. It was the sting of realizing she hadn't fully brought me into this part of her life. She had introduced me to David's wife, but she had kept Sarah locked away. I checked my phone. It had been an hour. One single, long, suffocating hour. Sarah was still orbiting her old life, miles away from me. I realized I couldn't stay. Not out of spite, but out of necessity. My head was pounding, and my spirit felt completely drained. I scanned the room, looking for a way out. I wanted to tell her I was leaving, but I couldn't bear to interrupt her moment. She was the queen of this domain, and I was just the quiet guard standing by the gate. I walked toward the back, past the kitchen, and found the back door. It led out onto a small, poorly lit porch. It was cold, and the air was crisp, a welcome relief after the muggy heat inside. I sat down on a worn wooden step, folding my hands in my lap, staring at the dimly lit ground. The music from inside was muffled now, a distant, irritating throb instead of a physical assault. I wasn't mad. I was confused. Confused by the two different women wearing the same name. Confused about why she felt the need to lie about this. Didn't she trust me to accept this wild side? Or was this wild side something she kept hidden because she thought I wouldn't like her anymore? I replayed her words. It's a small gathering. The lie was so small, so simple. Yet it created this massive chasm between us. It made me feel like an obligation. Something she had to drag along and then forget about once she got to her real party. That was the real sting. I was contemplating calling a taxi, planning my silent escape, when I heard the creak of the door. I looked up. It was Sarah. Her face was flushed, her hair slightly messy, but the electric spark was gone, replaced by a flicker of panic in her eyes. You disappeared, she said softly, sitting down beside me. The way she sat, so close, trying to shrink the distance that had grown between us, was what finally broke my calm composure. Yeah, I replied, forcing a faint smile. It was getting too noisy inside. And honestly, I needed some fresh air. I could feel the truth pressing against my teeth, trying to get out. She waited, searching my face. Are you upset with me? She asked. I took a long breath, letting the cold air clear my head. No, not upset, I said after a pause, making sure my tone was steady and honest. Just confused. Why didn't you tell me what kind of party this really was? I asked, the question coming out less as an accusation and more as a genuine plea for understanding. I feel like a stranger watching you live in a world I don't belong to. The honesty of my own words hit me hard. It wasn't about the noise or the party. It was about seeing a hidden dimension of the person I loved and realizing I'd been locked out of it. Sarah's bright energy seemed to deflate right there on the step. She looked down at her hands, the silence punctuated by the distant beat of the music. I just didn't want to deal with the awkwardness, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the throb. I wanted a few hours to feel young again. She didn't look up. To feel like I used to, before the mortgage, before the responsibilities, before us. I just wanted to have fun. Her confession hit me with unexpected pain. She wasn't lying to protect me from noise. She was lying to protect her brief, fleeting escape. An escape from our life, even if it meant leaving me out on the sidelines. I realized in that moment that I wasn't her problem. I was her reality, and she was chasing a memory instead of appreciating the present. So you left me on the sidelines, I repeated, not as a judgment, but simply stating the fact. Sarah finally looked up, her eyes glossy with unshed tears. I didn't mean to make you feel left out, she said quickly. I shook my head gently. I needed to say this, not for a fight, but for clarity. It's not just that you made me feel left out, Sarah. You left yourself out of our world, too. I looked at the house, then back at her. The person in there, that wild, loud Sarah, is a part of you. I get that, but you told me a lie to get me here. And then you completely disappeared into that old world. You didn't even try to build a bridge for me. You just expected me to stand on the shore and wave while you sailed off. I reached out and lightly held her hand. My hand was steady, hers was trembling. You don't need to chase the past to feel alive, Sarah, I said, my voice low and earnest. I wanted her to truly hear me. That person you were back then, the one who threw these wild parties, shaped who you are now. But the woman sitting next to me, the one who builds a beautiful, quiet life with me, is someone better. I just realized how much you've grown, and maybe you don't see that yet. The Sarah I married, the one who values quiet love and presence, is the person I want to be with. But you were so desperate to cling to the memory of who you used to be, that you forgot to fully bring the man who loves the woman you are into your world. The silence that followed was heavy, filled with the quiet ache of disappointment mixed with understanding. She didn't argue. She just sat there, realizing the depth of her own actions. We sat there in silence for a long time. The thumping music and the shouts of laughter were a soundtrack to our intimate, painful conversation. I didn't rush her. She needed to process this new, uncomfortable truth about herself and about us. Finally, she stood up, brushing down her sleek black dress. The vibrant energy was completely gone, replaced by a quiet, thoughtful melancholy. Let's go home, she said softly. You've seen your old world. Now come back to ours. The way she used that word, ours, made something settle inside my chest. It wasn't a world of her college friends, or my quiet nights alone. It was the world we had built together, the one we both belonged to. The phrase was simple, yet it had the weight of a promise, a grounding that I hadn't felt all night. I nodded, feeling a wave of relief wash over me. I took her hand. This time, I didn't feel like I was dragging a stranger away. I felt like I was leading my wife back to safety. We walked away from the noise, the glare, and the past, together. The drive home was quiet, not the tense, awkward silence of a fight, but a comforting one, full of unspoken understanding. Sarah stared out the window, and I knew she was realizing that chasing a memory was futile. The person I loved was sitting right next to me, steady and patient, the one who reminded me that growing up doesn't mean losing yourself, but discovering who you are now. When we got home, the light of our house was a beacon of warmth. We walked inside, and the quiet was deafening, but glorious. She turned to me. I am so sorry, David. She apologized again. I smiled, pulling her close. I kissed her forehead, a gentle, familiar gesture. You don't owe me an apology, I said. Just promise me, next time we'll go somewhere that we both belong. Somewhere we can both be fully ourselves, together. I promise, she whispered, leaning into my chest. That night, lying awake after she'd fallen asleep, I thought about how easy it is to take the people who love us for granted. Sarah had been so focused on fitting into a world that had moved on without her, while the person who never left her side waited patiently. The next morning, I watched her send a text to her friends. Later, she told me she thanked them, but wouldn't be joining the next gathering. She realized she didn't need to chase her past. I looked at her, sipping her coffee in her comfortable, slightly oversized sweater. The version of her that mattered most was the one who valued our quiet love, honesty, and presence. The excitement we seek isn't always in the loud parties or old memories. Sometimes it's in a quiet moment shared with the one person who never walks away. She looked up, caught my eye, and gave me a genuine, unforced smile. The one I knew, the one I loved. And I realized the most beautiful thing about love is not finding the person who completes you, but finding the person who is whole and chooses to share that quiet wholeness with you. The girl on the porch was a beautiful ghost. The woman in my kitchen was my life.